Good morning. Today's Bible reading comes from 2 Samuel 5, verses 17 through the end, into 6 to verse 23, which basically is the entire chapter 6. And then we have 1 Chronicles, chapters 13 through 16. Hope I made that clear. All right, let's get started. When the Philistines got word that David had been made king all over Israel, they came on the hunt for him. David heard of it and went down to the stronghold. When the Philistines arrived, they deployed their forces in Rephaim Valley. Then David prayed to God, "Shall I go up and fight the Philistines? Will you help me beat them?" "Go up," God replied. "Count on me. I'll help you beat them." David then went straight to Baal Perazim and smashed them to pieces. Afterward, David said, "God exploded on my enemies like a gush of water." That's why David named the place Baal Perazim, the master who explodes. The retreating Philistines dumped their idols, and David and his soldiers took them away. Later, there was a repeat performance. The Philistines came up again and deployed their troops in the Rephaim Valley. David again prayed to God. This time God said, "Don't attack them head on. Instead, circle around behind them and ambush them from the grove of sacred trees. When you hear the sound of shuffling in the trees, get ready to move out." It's a signal that God is going ahead of you to smash the Philistine camp. David did exactly what God told him. He routed the Philistines all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. David mustered the pick of the troops of Israel, 30 divisions of them. Together with these soldiers, David headed for Bala to recover the chest of God, which was called by the name God of the Angel Armies, who was enthroned over the pair of angels on the chest. They placed the chest of God on a brand new ox cart and removed it from Abinadab's house on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons, were driving the new cart loaded with the chest of God. Ahio was in the lead, Uzzah alongside the chest. David and the whole company of Israel were in the parade, singing at the top of their lungs and playing mandolins, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. When they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen stumbled, so Uzzah reached out and grabbed the chest of God. God blazed in anger against Uzzah and struck him hard because he had profaned the chest. Uzzah died on the spot, right alongside the chest. Then David got angry because of God's deadly outburst against Uzzah. That place is still called Perez Uzzah, the explosion against Uzzah. David became fearful of God that day and said, "This chest is too dangerous to handle. How can I ever get it back to the city of David?" He refused to take the chest of God a step farther. Instead, David removed it off the road into the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. The chest of God stayed at the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, for 3 months, and God prospered Obed-Edom and his entire household. It was reported to King David that God had prospered Obed-Edom and his entire household because of the chest of God. So David thought, "I'll get that blessing for myself," and went and brought up the chest of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David, celebrating extravagantly all the way, with frequent sacrifices of choice bulls. David, ceremonially dressed in priest's linen, danced with great abandon before God. The whole country was with him as he accompanied the chest of God with shouts and trumpet blast. But as the chest of God came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, happened to be looking out a window when she saw King David leaping and dancing before God. Her heart filled with scorn. They brought the chest of God and set it in the middle of the tent pavilion that David had pitched for it. Then and there David worshipped and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. When David had completed the sacrifices of burnt and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of God of the angel armies and handed out to each person in the crowd, men and women alike, a loaf of bread, a date cake, and a raisin cake. Then everyone went home. David returned home to bless his family. Michal, Saul's daughter, came out to greet him. How wonderfully the king has distinguished himself today, exposing himself to the eyes of the servants' maids like some burlesque street dancer. David replied to Michal, in God's presence, I'll dance all I want. He chose me over your father and the rest of our family and made me prince over God's people, over Israel. Oh yes, I'll dance to God's glory, more recklessly even than this. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll gladly look like a fool. But among these maids you're so worried about, I'll be honored no end. Michal, Saul's daughter, was barren the rest of her life. And I think sometimes we forget barren also means spiritually desolated. All right, 1 Chronicles chapter 13 through 14. David consulted with all of his leaders, the commanders of thousands and of hundreds. Then David addressed the entire assembly of Israel. If it seems right to you, and if it is God's will, let's invite all our relatives wherever they are throughout Israel, along with their relatives, including their priests and Levites from their cities and surrounding pastures, to join us. And let's bring the chest of our God back, the chest that was out of sight, out of mind during the days of Saul. The entire assembly of Israel agreed. Everybody agreed that it was the right thing to do. So David gathered all Israel together, from Egypt's pond of Horus in the southwest to the pass of Hamath in the northeast, to go and get the chest of God from Kiriath Jearim. Then David and all Israel went to Bala, Kiriath Jearim, in Judah to bring back the chest of God, the cherubim throne of God, where God's name is invoked. They moved the chest of God on a brand new cart from the house of Abinadab, with Uzzah and Ahio in charge. In procession with the chest of God, David and all Israel worshipped exuberantly in song and dance, with marching band of all kinds of instruments. When they were at the threshing floor of Kedon, the oxen stumbled and Uzzah grabbed the chest to keep it from falling off. God erupted in anger against Uzzah and killed him because he grabbed the chest. He died on the spot in the presence of God. David lost his temper, angry because God exploded against Uzzah. The place is still called Perez Uzzah, exploded Uzzah. David was terrified of God that day. He said, how can I possibly continue this parade with the chest of God? So David called off the parade of the chest to the city of David. Instead, he stored it in the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite. The chest of God was in storage in the house of Obed-Edom for 3 months. God blessed the family of Obed-Edom and everything around him. King Hiram of Tyre sent an envoy to David, along with cedar lumber, masons, and carpenters, to build him a royal palace. Then David knew for sure that God had confirmed him as king over Israel, because of the rising reputation that God was giving his kingdom for the benefit of his people Israel. David married more wives and had more children in Jerusalem. His children born in Jerusalem were Shemua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Apelet, Nogah, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet. Whew. The minute the Philistines heard that David had been made king over a united Israel, they went out in force to capture David. When David got the report, he marched out to confront them. On their way, the Philistines stopped off to plunder the valley of Rephaim. David prayed to God, "Is this the right time to attack the Philistines? Will you give me victory?" God answered, "Attack, I'll give you the victory." David attacked at Baal Perazim and slaughtered them. David said, "God exploded my enemies as water explodes from a burst pipe." That's how the place got its name, Baal Perazim. Baal, explosion. The Philistines left their gods behind, and David ordered that they be burned up. And then the Philistines were back at it again, plundering in the valley. David again prayed to God. God answered, "This time, don't attack head on. Circle around and come at them out of the balsam grove. When you hear a sound like shuffling feet in the tops of the balsams, attack. God will be 2 steps ahead of you, slaughtering the Philistines." David did exactly as God commanded, slaughtering Philistines, all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. David was soon famous all over the place, far and near, and God put the fear of God into the godless nations. After David built houses for himself in the city of David, he cleared a place for the chest and pitched a tent for it. Then David gave orders. No one carries the chest of God except the Levites. God designated them and them only to carry the chest of God and be available full time for service in the work of worship. David then called everyone in Israel to assemble in Jerusalem to bring up the chest of God to its specially prepared place. David also called in the family of Aaron and the Levites. From the family of Kohath, Uriel, the head with 120 relatives. From the family of Merari, Asaiah, the head with 220 relatives. From the family of Gershon, Joel, the head with 130 relatives. From the family of Elizaphan, Shemaiah, the head with 200 relatives. From the family of Hebron, Eliel, the head with 80 relatives. From the family of Uzziel, Abinadab, the head with 112 relatives. David called in Zadok and Abiathar the priests, and Uriel, Isaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab the Levites. He said, "You are responsible for the Levitical families. Now consecrate yourselves, both you and your relatives, and bring up the chest of God of Israel to the place I have set aside for it." The first time we did this, you Levites did not carry it properly, and God exploded in anger at us because we didn't make proper preparation and follow instructions. So the priests and Levites consecrated themselves to bring up the chest of God of Israel. The Levites carried the chest of God exactly as Moses, instructed by God, commanded. Carried it with poles on their shoulders, careful not to touch it with their hands. David ordered the heads of the Levites to assign their relatives to sing in the choir, accompanied by a well-equipped marching band, and fill the air with joyful sound. The Levites assigned Heman, son of Joel, and from his family Asaph, son of the Berechiah, then Ethan, son of Cushiah, from the family of Merari, and after them, in the second ranked their brothers Zechariah, Jaziel, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Benaiah, Matthiah, Mattathiah, Eliphalehu, Miknahiah, Obed, Edom, and Jael as security guards. The members of the choir and marching band were Heman, Asaph, and Ethan with bronze cymbals, Zechariah, Haziel, Shemiramoth, Jael, Uni, Eliab, Maaseiah, and Benaiah with lyres carrying the melody. Mattathiah, Eliphalehu, Miknahiah, Obed, Edom, Jael, Azaziah with harps filling in the harmony. Kenaniah, the Levite in charge of music, a very gifted musician, was music director. Berechiah and Elkanah were porters for the chest. The priests Shebaniah, Jehoshaphat, Nathaniel, Amasai, Zechariah, Benaiah, Eleazar blew the trumpets before the chest of God. Obed-Edom and Jehiah were also porters for the chest. Now they were ready. David, the elders of Israel, and the commanders of thousands started out to get the chest of the covenant of God and bring it up from the house of Obed-Edom. And they were rejoicing. They went rejoicing because God helped the Levites, strengthening them as they carried the chest of the covenant of God. They paused to worship by sacrificing 7 bulls and 7 rams. They were all dressed in elegant linen. David, the Levites carrying the chest, the choir and band, and Kenaniah, who was directing the music. David also wore a linen prayer shawl, called an ephod. On they came, all Israel on parading, bringing up the chest of the covenant of God, shouting, cheering, playing every kind of brass and percussion and string instrument. When the chest of the covenant of God entered the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, was watching from a window. When she saw King David dancing ecstatically, she was filled with contempt. They brought the chest of God and placed it right in the center of the tent that David had pitched for it. Then they worshiped by presenting burnt offerings and peace offerings to God. When David had completed the offerings of worship, he blessed the people in the name of God. Then he passed around to everyone there, men and women alike, a loaf of bread, a slice of barbecue, and a raisin cake. Then David assigned some of the Levites to the chest of God to lead worship, to intercede, give thanks, and praise the God of Israel. Asaph was in charge. Under him were Zechariah, Jael, Shemiramoth, Jehiel, Mattathiah, Eliab, Benaiah, Obed-Edom, and Jael, who played the musical instruments. Asaph was on percussion. The priests Benaiah and Jahaziel blew the trumpets before the chest of the covenant of God at set times throughout the day. That was the day that David inaugurated regular worship of praise to God, led by Asaph and his company. Thank God, Call out his name. Tell the whole world who he is and what he's done. Sing to him. Play songs for him. Broadcast all his wonders. Revel in his holy name. God seekers, be jubilant. Study God in his strength. Seek his presence day and night. Remember all the wonders he performed, the miracles and judgments that came out of his mouth. Seed of Israel, his servant. Children of Jacob, his first choice. He is God, our God. Wherever you go, you come on his judgments and decisions. He keeps his commitments across thousands of generations. The covenant he commanded. The same one he made with Abraham. The very one he swore to Isaac. He posted it in big block letters to Jacob. This eternal covenant with Israel. I give you the land of Canaan. This is your inheritance. Even though you're not much to look at, a few straggling strangers. They wandered from country to country, camped out in one kingdom after another. But he didn't let anyone push them around. He stood up for them against bully kings. Don't you dare touch my anointed ones. Don't lay a hand on my prophets. Sing to God, everyone and everything. Get out his salvation news every day. Publish his glory among the godless nations, his wonders to all races and religions. And why? Because God is great, well worth praising. No god or goddesses comes close in honor. All the popular gods are stuff and nonsense. But God made the cosmos. Splendor and majesty flow out of him. Strength and joy fill his place. Shout bravo to God, families of the peoples, in awe of the glory, in awe of the strength. Bravo. Shout bravo to his famous name. Lift high an offering and enter his presence. Stand resplendent in his robes of holiness. God is serious business. Take him seriously. He's put the earth in place and it's not moving. So let heaven rejoice, let earth be jubilant, and pass the word among the nations. God reigns. Let ocean, all teeming with life, bellow. Let field and all its creatures shake the rafters. Then the trees and the forest will add their applause to all who are pleased and present before God. He's on his way to set things right. Give thanks to God. He is good and his love never quits. Say, save us, Savior God. Round us up and get us out of these godless places so we can give thanks to your holy name and bask in your life of praise. Blessed be God, the God of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Then everybody said, yes, amen, and praise God. David left Asaph and his co-workers with the chest of the covenant of God and in charge of the work of worship. They were responsible for the needs of worship around the clock. He also assigned Obed-Edom and his 68 relatives to help them. Obed-Edom, son of Jeduthun, and Hosah were in charge of the security guards. The priest Zadok and his family of priests were assigned to the tent of God at the sacred mound of Gibeon, to make sure that the services of morning and evening worship were conducted daily, complete with the whole burnt offerings offered on the altar of burnt offering as ordered in the law of God, which is the norm for Israel. With them were Heman, Jeduthun, and others specifically named with the job description. Give thanks to God, for his love never quits. Heman and Jeduthun were also well equipped with trumpets, cymbals, and other instruments for accompanying sacred songs. Sons of Jeduthun formed the security guard. Arrangements completed, the people all left home for home, and David went home to bless his family. And that is it for today's Bible reading. Got a little hoarse there. But as always, get in touch with God today and have a blessed day. See you again tomorrow. Bye.